This is Aunt Shazy. Have you visited the Fort Garland Museum and Cultural Center in Colorado? It's located near Blanca Peak, Colorado's fourth highest summit, and not far from the Great Sand Dunes. Keep an eye out for that upcoming video. First, let me offer a little bit of advice. If you come in the winter or on a cold day, dress warm. You'll be walking from building to building, and it's really cold in the unheated. And let's jump back in time quickly. Before Fort Garland, there was Fort Massachusetts. Built in 1852 in a swampy, vulnerable canyon bottom, the original fort proved to be a tactical nightmare. It was poorly located for defense and susceptible to both elements and ambush. In 1858, the U.S. Army abandoned the canyon and moved 6 miles south to a strategic gateway location. Fort Garland was established in 1858 and named after Brevet Brigadier General John Garland, the commander of the Department of New Mexico. The new fort was constructed of thick, sun-dried adobe bricks, a practical choice in a landscape where timber was scarce. The interior walls were made of mud and lime, and the flat roofs were constructed using large log beams with wood planks on top. The fort was completed on June 24, 1858, one of the most volatile periods in Colorado's history, and it wasn't even Colorado at that time. The flag was lowered at Fort Massachusetts and marched to the new site. The fort's mission was clear: protect the settlers moving into the San Luis Valley, and maintain a fragile peace with the local Native American tribes. Like most forts, it contained a parade ground with a flagpole in the center and wells at the northeast and northwest corners. So, what's it like to be stationed at the fort? Life was defined by a mixture of grueling labor and profound isolation. For the average soldier, the glory of the frontier was largely a myth. Days began at 5 a.m. with reveille, followed by endless drills, stable duties, and construction of adobe buildings. The diet was monotonous, consisting largely of hard bread, salt pork, beans, and coffee. While officers' wives tried to bring a semblance of Victorian society to the valley, hosting balls and dinners, the common soldier faced sub-zero winters in poorly heated barracks. The ladies who were volunteering when we visited said desertion was very common, and I can see why. Over the 25 years it was in operation, 463 soldiers deserted the fort. Only 2 years saw no desertions at all. That was 1875 and 1878. Perhaps no figure is more synonymous with the fort than the infamous Christopher Kit Carson. In 1866, Carson was tasked with one of the most difficult diplomatic missions of his career, negotiating with Ute Chief Ouray. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Carson advocated for a nuanced approach to the Indian question, favoring diplomacy over the scorched earth tactics often employed by the military. His residency at the fort, along with his wife Josepha, remains a focal point of the site's historical narrative. He was only there from 1866 to 1867. Equally as famous were the Buffalo Soldiers. Following the Civil War, the fort became a pivotal station for the 9th Cavalry, which were known as the Buffalo Soldiers. These African-American troops were instrumental in patrolling the frontier, protecting mail routes, and engaging in some of the final military actions against indigenous resistance. Their presence at Fort Garland from 1876 to 1879 marked a significant chapter in the history of the Black West, proving their resilience in the face of both harsh environments and systemic prejudice. They have an entire area dedicated to their brave service. Another area you won't want to miss is the room dedicated to Cathay Williams. She was a formerly enslaved woman who secretly served in the U.S. Army and was one of the bravest soldiers of the American West. Disguising herself as a man, she enlisted in the U.S. Army under the name William Cathay and joined the Buffalo Soldiers. She was eventually discovered after repeated hospitalizations and discharged, but not before completing nearly 2 years of active duty. She later applied for a military pension, an extraordinary act in itself, but was denied. Despite this, her story survived through military records and later historians who recognized her courage. One thing that really struck us while we were there was how troublemakers were dealt with. I didn't last very long standing in one of the reconstructed cells, if you can call it a cell. It was a small wooden room with no ventilation, no heat, one blanket, one bucket to do your business in, and then the men would only get one meal a day. There was a small hole in the roof that provided only a little light and incoming rain and snow. Serious offenders were often shackled with heavy leg irons. For minor infractions like public intoxication or insubordination, which, let's be honest, there wasn't much to do there, so drinking was rampant, soldiers were forced to carry a 40-pound log around the parade ground for hours or be tied to a buck and gag, which is a painful position that rendered a man immobile and silent. At the time, Fort Garland was the only source of law for hundreds of miles. Consequently, it served as a courtroom and jail for both military and civilian offenders. The treatment of criminals was swift and often brutal, governed by the Articles of War. The fort did see one murder. After a night of drinking, two privates got into a fight. Homobono Caravagel was arrested and put in a cell, while Manuel Lujan got to sleep in his barracks. When Caravagel got out the next morning, he went to the barracks and shot Lujan in the head. While no one saw him do it, he was tried, convicted, and sentenced to hang. But his sentence was commuted by Colonel John Chivington, who, in his words, Caravagel was just plain crazy. He was instead committed to the St. Elizabeth's Asylum in Washington, D.C. The most famous criminals associated with the fort's history were the Espinosa brothers, Colorado's first serial killers. After a bloody rampage across the territory in 1863, the Army at Fort Garland dispatched the legendary scout Tom Tobin. Tobin tracked them down, killed them, and famously returned to the fort carrying their heads in a gunny sack to claim his reward. So much work has obviously gone into the preservation and reconstruction here. There are 5 of the original 22 buildings still standing. The reconstructed buildings are on the original footprints, and the detail put into the cavalry and infantry barracks is mind-blowing. So many little details. I'm guessing you could probably spend an hour to 90 minutes if you don't do all of the reading that's available. So, by the early 1880s, the arrival of the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad and the forced removal of the Ute tribes to reservations made the fort's military presence redundant. In 1883, the American flag was lowered for the last time as a military post. While many frontier forts crumbled into the dust, Fort Garland was saved by the Colorado Historical Society, now History Colorado, in 1945. Today, it stands as one of the best preserved adobe forts in the United States, offering visitors a chance to walk through the original commandant's quarters and stand on the very parade grounds where Carson once stood. Personally, I thought the $10 entry fee was worth every penny. And if you have a couple extra minutes, right down the road is the Costilla County Veterans Park. It's free to visit, my favorite, and they have a Lockheed T-33A shooting star on display. It's an American subsonic jet trainer used by the Navy starting in 1948 with production ending in 1959. It's definitely a cool plane worth checking out and paying your respects to the veterans who gave their lives. Oh, and thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please like our video and subscribe so others can enjoy it as well.